And for more insights, let's bring in Tomohiko Taniguchi, Special Advisor, Fujitsu Future Studies Center and Specially Appointed Professor at the University of Tsukuba in Tokyo. Welcome to East Asia Tonight, Professor. First up, I thought I'd perhaps get your thoughts on the latest defense budget request. It's a record high of $59 billion. Do you think, Professor, that the recent airspace incursion by a Chinese intelligence plane had anything to do with it?
The short answer is very little, because that's been a daily phenomenon that Japanese airfighter pilots scrambled to deter incoming Chinese aircraft. So that was not new. What was new was that the reconnaissance aircraft of the Chinese military made an intrusion into Japanese sovereign airspace. That was new. But if you look at the sea space again, then you see almost daily Chinese official vessels, 3-4 vessels, are entering into either Japanese contiguous waters or sovereign territorial waters. So Japan is faced with this intrusion of the kind that's been unprecedented for over about 10 years. And the budget increase you're talking about is something that people are talking about with a buzzword of we've got to do this now before it's too late. Before it's too late is the buzzword.
Right. And part of that, announcement was the fact that how Japan's military is grappling with this severe recruitment crisis. And in response, the government says it's proposing investments in AI, automation, wage increases and all of that. Professor, do you think these measures are actually sufficient to reverse this trend? Or do you think there are more fundamental issues at play here?
Money is very much important, and the amount of money to be increased is not sufficient. And ironically, Japan's job situation is very good. It's the total perfect employment is the economic situation you have because of the steps made by the previous Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Abenomics has worked very well in terms of increasing job opportunities for the young. So public sector, especially the defense ministry, defense agency, defense forces, have been struggling very much hard with the private sector in terms of hiring high school and college graduates. So the steps made for the next year's budget are important, but that's going to be far from enough.
So then how do you think, we keep saying it's a record-breaking defense budget, but still, compared to some other countries and compared to the GDP, it's not that high. But how close do you think Tokyo is in terms of achieving its goal to modernize and better equip its forces to be a credible deterrent in the region?
In order for Japan to develop its deterrence capabilities to the fullest, there is very limited amount of things that you could do alone by yourself, unless and until you team up with like-minded partners. The United States, obviously, Australia, the Philippines, increasingly, and the South Koreans. So Japan must work hard to develop its deterrence capacities on top of the budget proposals that you're talking about. As regards the budget proposals, I would say there is a broad consensus in a rather bipartisan way. So the increase you're talking about is going to be implemented rather frictionless, in a frictionless manner next year. And I would hope that the year after next. But even that is not going to be enough because of the huge gap you're talking about between China and Japan. And as you say, Japan is faced with North Korea, China, Russia. That's not the kind of neighborhood you could envy.
Right. You've mentioned there's a huge gap between China and Japan, and that's why partnering is important. So, Professor, how does partnering with how do you think this increased defense budget actually will help its neighbors like the Philippines, as you've mentioned, with all these regional security challenges? And is it enough to make a real difference?
The question is, is it going to be a real difference? Yes, the answer is we must make a real difference, but by working closely with those nations you mentioned. The Philippines pose an interesting case here because it's becoming more like a hub of alliance networks. The Philippines, Japan, the United States. Philippines, Japan, Canada, the United States. Philippines, Australia, Japan, and the United States. And India is also interested in working with the Philippines. So the Philippines, Japan have been much closer, and the Japanese have been providing in a baby step way, although providing the Philippines with, excuse me, military equipment.
Professor, so the U.S. and the Philippines, they said that they've got a range of options to deal with these so-called gray zone tactics in the South China Sea. So with Tokyo also facing similar issues with Beijing, do you think such an arrangement could possibly be expanded to Japan? And is there a need to?
There is an increasing need and awareness among the Philippines, Japan, and the United States to maximize the combined capabilities of these three nations. Because at the end of the day, Taiwan, if you look at the island, is sandwiched between the Philippines and Japan. And the Philippines and Japan have both been very much close militarily to the United States. So the equation here is very much simple. The Philippines, Japan, and the United States must work together and do as much as they can as regards the gray zone warfare, preparedness, and so on.
It was great speaking to you. You might need a glass of water for that scratchy throat there. Thanks so very much.
Sorry about that.
No worries at all. Appreciate your time. Tomohiko Taniguchi from the University of Tsukuba in Tokyo.